All right. You're recording. Avoid legal snags by telling people they're being recorded. Not sure that we consider this a bad thing, recording, because I think we like that. That's going to be pretty well, I guess. I guess it's Sam. Is that who it is on your end that we keep sending the recordings to? And he's taking care of it?
Yes, I believe so.
Good.
Well,
Okay.
Jennifer's going to start doing it now.
I'm taking care of that.
Oh, okay, Jennifer. Thank you. Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much for that. Okay, well, 1472 is where we left off. I don't know if you have your paperwork in front of you. I certainly do. I also have the objects that were updated, which tells me who did it and so forth. Excuse me, my frog in my throat for some reason. 1472 was a report and a page that we did for Alberta's teacher retirement fund. The only province we're in Canada is in Alberta, so to us it's like a state, and we are working on that. Not going to talk much more about that, but you'll start to see stuff with provinces and Canada and so forth in our system, so that's why. 1474, looks like it was a few objects. Just not sure what we were doing in 1474. It says correct the problem with liabilities to AP process is not populating the remit to code. So we did in the I guess in the 13th release, we introduced a remit to capability that then discovered we had problems with it, which is not super surprising. I think Allie, you reported this problem out of Rowan, where we were having a problem with liabilities to AP related to the remit to address code. So the vendor had the remit to address code, but it was being ignored, if you will, vis-a-vis the data that was being sent to liabilities to AP, and therefore when the check was printed, it was having the wrong address on the check. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So we quickly fixed that. And I think that was actually affecting, even if you were to possibly use like the recurring journals or purchase journals, it was causing some issues there. That's where the code really had to be fixed, not really in the liabilities to AP program. But it doesn't matter. The point is that we did fix it, and you've reported that to be successful. I mean, that's been working fine at this point.
I know it was tested, and that part went well. Rowan has not actually run a payroll yet. They'll do that at the beginning of next week. So I'll have 100% confirmation then, this time next week.
Yeah, real world confirmation, nothing better. Good. Yes. Well, let us know. So that was that. So that's, again, the remit to address code. It was really related to, I guess, having a default filled in on the vendor card. So if you have the default remit to address code and you're doing liabilities to AP, we want to make sure that that is the address that appears on that subsequent check, and that's what we didn't pick up on our initial design. Just missed it completely, and then we were alerted by Allie very nicely and promptly, and then we went ahead and fixed it. So, all right, 1476, another Canadian thing, update Canadian export payment code unit. So we do have a very specialized ACH. It's not really even ACH. I don't know what it is, but it's the ability to do an electronic payment of an AP invoice using the Canadian format. That's what we were doing in 1476, getting that up and running. So that was done. Hopefully that's working. I don't know. I haven't heard any report of that. 1481 was done by yours truly, I see. Let's see what it was. Purchase payable, suggest vendor payments, and payment journal install fixes to ensure check sort order is retained. That was quite a bit of little work right there. We basically needed to make sure that the sort order that you choose in payable setup. So really what we're talking about, and I can just open up a screen, is in payable setup. I believe this is where the setting is. We have a check sort order, and those are our choices. So when you're doing a payment journal, I want the checks to either come out by vendor number, vendor name, or vendor search name. Vendor search name is just used as an alternative vendor name. So you might have the something, 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 and in the search name you might remove the, because when you're sorting, you're not really thinking of the, so you're kind of wanting to kind of just go to it sort of after the. So that's kind of use of why we sometimes have vendor search name versus vendor name. So we were having problems with the remit to system. The new remit to system in conjunction with this check sort order really wasn't delivering the sort order in a consistent way. I think we kind of broke it, if I remember correctly, with the remit to functionality, and we repaired it basically as well. So again, 1481 was really spawned by the introduction of the remit to concept that we added, which was a good concept, but we just had to follow through in areas that we just hadn't picked up, and this is the area that we picked up. I'm not sure who reported this, but I believe this was 100% nailed at this point. I haven't heard anything otherwise. So But that's what we were doing in 1481 was fixing the sort order, and it actually revolved. I think the suggest better payments batch report and all the AP checks had to get a little bit of code in them to get that to work. Okay, so that was 1481, real important because people like their checks coming out in the right order. I don't think the checks were flawed in any way; they just were not coming out in order that people then knew where to find them, particularly on long runs. Okay, so that was a lot of different pieces to that. A lot of objects were affected. 1485, purchase agent role center improve queues to better indicate PO status enhancement. So this was a decent amount of work as well. We went ahead and let me just show you what this looks like. So if I switch over to my user card, and I'll just go here. And I'll go, no, not there. I'll go here. And we'll go ahead and switch to, I guess it's purchasing, right, guys? Purchasing agent, right. And we'll close and reopen. So we had queues that were on there that were kind of meaningless. They weren't very helpful. And people were getting, if you will, not clear messaging in terms of where things were in processes. And the purchasing department just didn't have as much visibility as they needed to have to see kind of at a glance where things are in the process. And this, I think, related to some degree, I think it was purchase orders really that have become improved that needed to be encumbered. And again, Allie, you may be able to speak to this, or Linda, but I felt like it was maybe even at Rowan, the final approver possibly was still a limited user for a PO, and therefore it was only getting approved. It couldn't get encumbered because it had to be done by a back office because the encumbrance is a journal entry, and that's what full users are allowed to do. And so isn't that really kind of like we didn't have visibility to that? Is that what the problem was? I just can't completely recall.
The problem was they didn't have visibility to know which ones to print. They wanted to be able to print all the ones, that were ready, and they had no way to figure out which ones had not, which ones needed to be printed. Then They couldn't use any others. So by doing this, then the last, you've got all of these ones that have been approved, but they haven't been encumbered yet. So those are the ones you need to print. And then the final person encumbers them all,
Right.
Yeah.
But we've talked about a design, guys, where we may go one step further, which is to sort of put into a separate queue even an encumbered PO that hasn't been printed. And that's kind of complicated in a lot of ways because, there's a field on the header that says number printed. And whenever you print a PO, it increments. But it doesn't stop somebody when they're just in the approval pending or even in the new status to just print a PO, and it will print. And then it'll update that value and kind of blow that as sort of a field that we could use. So that's why I think we've been struggling a little bit. Maybe what we could also look at possibly is maybe capturing the date and time it gets encumbered or something of that nature. And then, I don't know. We're still kind of not sure how to, what you're really trying to do is get to the POs that are, just got encumbered, I guess. And the other thought process would be is that when it does get encumbered, we just go ahead and use the same functionality that we've already built when a requisition transfers to POs, where we just send the PO out to both the person who put the PO in as well as the vendor. So we got a lot of still, I think, not a lot of work, but some work to do. And again, you guys and Meta should be thinking about that as well and talking to your customers and kind of helping us figure out what is the best way to sort of help them know, especially in districts that have lots and lots of POs, they're just very heavy PO, just thousands of POs, if you will. What's the better way to handle that? So I still think we have work to do. This is a much better queue system than we ever had. Trust me, it is much, much better. But I still think we have some work to do. Just my thought. Anybody else have any thoughts before I move on? Okay. There comes Allie again, 1486, NC Orbit Retirement Report Workspace, add feature to roll insignificant amounts. Let me turn off that phone. Hold on, sorry about that. There we go. Okay, so I'm not going to talk more about that, but there was something going on there again. And then we have a next one as well, 1487, and I'm going to skip that one. And okay. 1490 is the next one I come to. Bug fix leave request. Bug fix for leave requests is probably something that was related to Meta typically. So let's just take a look at 1490. Who did the work? I did the work. Okay, what did I saying I'm doing here? Remove assignment of leave group code from employee record. Oh, okay. Yeah, that was a bug fix. We still were having a problem. We finally removed the real fields. The old leave group code field, we had blanked it out in a previous release and moved it down to the default job, but we had left it in there, and then the next release we deleted it. Well, when we deleted it and when we compiled all our code, we found this problem and then fixed it. So the system was not getting the leave group code correct from the default job. It was actually getting it from the employee, which was now blank, which was not good. So if you had an approval rule built around the leave group code, people that have this leave group code gets approved by this person or that person, it would have caused some major problems. I don't think you guys did, which I think is why it didn't cause major problems. But in case somebody creates an approval rule based on leave group code, it was always set to blank, and so we fixed that, and that was very important to fix. So that's what 1490 was. Okay. I don't remember what caused this, but we were having a problem with those slashes in the name of that table. It was a SQL problem we were getting. We were getting certain SQL errors in certain situations. I don't remember where, but we decided that the slash was causing the problem, which it was. And I think even the parentheses, right, Bill, I think. And so we removed the parentheses and the slash and those table names. And that was resolving a problem that I just can't quite remember where the problem was then occurring. Do you remember?
No, I don't know. But if you could leave out periods, that'd be helpful too.
Where are the periods?
All through like table names and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just speaking from somebody who works in both SQL and the
right. I understand
nav stuff.
Yeah, that's a little harder because you have them all over the place.
Yeah, I know.
Probably hundreds of tables that have periods in them, quite honestly.
So just when you do new ones, just leave out the period. All these special characters that you.
One thing we also know is a very bad character to use is ampersand. That's a terrible character to use in nav. So again, continuing on. People join in if you have any questions. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to cruise. 1493 time journal post. A problem with comp entries using the leave group code from employee rather than the employee job. This is a bug fix. Again, similar kind of thing as before. 1493 was fixed by Kevin, who does most of the comp time work. And again, it was the two, I think, areas that we discovered once we actually removed the actual leave group code from the employee and we compiled. This is one of the pieces of code that came up in that test. And so then it was fixed by Kevin. So anyway, that's what that was. I don't think that affects Meta at all because I don't believe you're using our comp system at all at this time. So if you are, let me know, but I don't think you are. Okay, continuing on. 1494, correct issues with PIMS report objects found during leave column deletion. Notice they're all coming together. Same thing with eSchool Mall. Again, these are functionalities that you're probably not using. PIMS, of course, is Pennsylvania's staff reporting system. And then 1495 is eSchool Mall. We have an eSchool Mall piece of work that was also having a problem. So again, those were just technical problems that we found once we deleted those fields. This 1497 is interesting. I don't know if it'll affect anybody. I think in the school district world, typically I find that your year from a leave perspective, when you speak to your employee and they're online, they're in the self-service system, and they're seeing a beginning balance, how much they've accrued for the year, how much they've taken for the year, and their current balance as of now is really connected really naturally to the fiscal year. So really, it should their brains think as of July 1 and so forth. But we did have a request to parameterize that because we were just defaulting it to the fiscal year end, assuming that the fiscal year end and the would be the what you would use for presentation, if you will, on leave balances. But anyway, we had one client that wasn't the case. They were using a calendar system. So we added a setup. And when we loaded this setup into the system, we went ahead. Oops, yeah, there. Sorry, it's taking a second to come up. We went ahead and there it's under leaves right there. We went ahead and set everybody to July. So basically, we pretty much preset every single district to July because every district pretty much that we have is a June 30 year end. So we went ahead and set everybody to July. So it should have no effect. So if you really did want to show beginning balances as of, let's say, a different period, then that's how you would do it. As I'm saying that, I could see possibly where you may want to do that at a lower level. Maybe teachers would be from September 1 to August 31, and then 12-month guys would be July 1. But right now this is a global setting. But if we really do see a need to sort of show it differently for different types of employees, we'd have to study that and see if that'd be something possible, which I think it would be. I think it's certainly something we could do. We just haven't had that request. Okay, speed import, again, we use that mainly in North Carolina, I believe. I don't know if we use that in Ohio, but import fails when validate employee job for date worked with no hours or absence for that date. And that was a bug that Kevin fixed for us, I believe, or Mohammed, I'm just not even sure. 1498, that was Kevin. Okay, a couple objects he fixed. Okay, 1499, test for control fund and limited user deposit feature. 1499 was done by, me. Added to control fund, checked the ability to edit the control fund in general journal batches. Yeah, that was something that was reported, I think, related to you guys. I can't remember, but I think Dan reported that. And the system, we had thought that you really had to always put the control fund in the batch. So when you're setting up a user, and let me just kind of go to the user's card again. Got to go to that second one, not the first one. So if I go to my AVF, this is my limited user login. We have this field now called deposit template name and batch name. And in this batch name that we assign, we thought that the control fund had to be filled in. Well, the reality is that is true if you're using an interfund model or traditional. If you're on your cash side using distributed, in fact, you can't even fill it in. This system will automatically make that field non-editable when this screen comes up. And yet we were checking to make sure you had a value in there. And of course, we don't need to do that because the system gets it from the lines, doesn't get it from the header, if you will. And so anyway, that was a little bit of a nuance we didn't realize, and Dan pointed that out, and I think, or James, I can't remember actually at this point. It might have been one of them, but I think it might have been James actually, now I'm saying it. We went ahead and fixed that, so took care of that issue. Okay, 1503, time journal, K12E map entries, pay rate overrides. Again, I don't know if guys are using that in Ohio, but we are doing several things in there. We've been continuing to enhance that functionality. That's all Kevin, I think's work right there. And 1503 was just in one object, which is this XML port where he imports. He added capability to override the hourly pay rate and paycheck description. So I think that was an issue where it just kept coming back to what it defaulted to as opposed to respecting what was in the actual file. I mean, again, if anybody has more information on that, jump in, but otherwise I think that's what we were doing. 1504 was an eccentric. Yes, I love that term eccentric. That we got that from Debbie. The eccentric fold is an 8.5 by 14 self-folding payroll check form where it's stub check. And it's a very large stub, and a very small check. So it's eccentric in the sense that those two stub sections are very large or larger as opposed to a third, which is kind of more of the standard one that we've already had up and running. So we had a client that used the eccentric one. We knew we were going to do that sooner or later, and we went ahead and did in this release. So that's all 1504 is. And again, that's just another choice of a payroll check that you can pick from, and so forth. So that's really all that is. We have a client now that's going to be using Award Vision, and I'll just kind of speak to this sort of at a high level because it's a licensing issue. It's not that it's free. You'd have to actually get the district to pay some additional amount for it. But Award Vision is more of a hyper functional system for grant tracking. Somebody, a foundation, or somebody gives you, the district, a grant. May be multi-year. It may cross years. It may not even cross. It may not even be on a fiscal year, but on a completely different, year. It may be that they have a different way that they want to report back. They want you to report back with a different account structure than your account structure. Completely accommodates that sort of translation from their accounts to your accounts. And then you put the awards in, and then as you basically you connect it to a value in your dimensional structure. So once you've done that, then it's sort of automated. You don't really have to indicate the award as your data entering. Once you pick that dimension, you might have a dimension called funding source, and you might create a specific one for this grant. Then the system will track the award ledger and allow all the reporting to the funder. It's really for advanced reporting, really to funders, as well as also forcing you to only allow certain account strings to be used, because again, there's restrictions on this grant and you have to spend the money on these things only, which is what your account strings speak to. So it's also that type of validation as well. So it's pretty high end. We put this on the menu because we do need that in Hampton City Schools in Hampton, Virginia. So that's why it's there, and it'll stay there, although down the line it may be changed, but right now it's a pretty heavy duty piece of software. And it's always been there. We just never had many districts that wanted to use it at that level. So it is there if you need it. If you have a large district that has a lot of money being granted to them, and they have almost a full-time person managing the grant accounting. And when you see that, you should say, maybe I should have a conversation with these K-12 guys to help that district out. Okay, 1510. This I can blame on, I think, Linda. I'm not positive. Let me turn the page.
Yeah, I'm sure you can.
Yeah, I'm sure I can. So Linda had us add, I think, 5 steps during this release, and I'm not positive about that, but let's just go look. I'll just talk about all of them at the same time. So in the admin section, method steps. Okay, and what I'm going to do is just turn this backwards like that, right? So all 5 of these dudes were added, and I think we might have talked about them last time. I think we did, actually, because we came across, I think, the workers' comp one in the last call we had. So I think I kind of went through all of these already. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did.
I think you did.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah, I do remember that. So I'm not going to talk about my new method steps because I already did on our previous session. If you missed that session, it's online. We have the video recorded. I don't know exactly where it is on the in the actual recording, but it's there. Payroll check error. The size of the field allocation and the error check online was incorrect. It was increased to 20. Not sure how we missed that all that time, but that was going to. We went ahead and resolved that. So you could be getting errors on the error check online, and that has been resolved. Okay, bank reconciliation test report. The statement number does not completely show on the bank reconciliation. We just widen it slightly. I'm not even going to look to know who did that because I'm sure Mohammed did that. Mohammed's our main report guy. ATRF, cause of an activity reporting enhancement. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Canada, but that's what that was. Add fields to web services. Again, we do a lot of web services to report to an HR system in North Carolina, and we are adding fields as required based on feedback from them, I'm assuming. 1515, I'm just curious. Mohammed did that. Okay, so he added all those. Okay, very good. 1517, check ledger GL distribution by fund, data incorrect. Okay, who did the work? The work was done by Mohammed again, and I don't know, it's several reports, and these are all reports that are in different places, but he's basically fixing something. And again, let me just kind of look at some of this real quick. Does anybody know anything about this? Linda, do you know anything about this report?
No, I think this is a report Lawrence uses, and I think it had some issues with.
Yeah, it's not here. It's in the payable side, isn't it? So it's in payable reports. So in payable reports, I think it's kind of like these two reports were having problems. Lawrence uses this in New York. They use these reports a lot, and we were having some struggles with them because it's a complicated report. And I think there was something that was reported in terms of the way that we were linking things. The report also needs to show the word voided. So these reports have been heavily worked on, and I do invite you, if you don't know these two reports, I do recommend you try them. Check ledger, GL distribution by check and by fund. You may be surprised how valuable they could be, and districts may want to run them quite often. But I think the point of them is there really is, here's the check, here's the invoices that paid, and here's the GL distributions of those invoices, is I think. And then there's some summaries at the bottom. So I think that's kind of the gist of it, but it can get complicated when people process data in ways that maybe are not typical. And that's why I think he continues to sort of tweak it, because Lawrence seems to be good at that, processing things that we didn't expect them to do. ERC pay voucher display parameters. I think this is something I probably worked on, but let me just double check. This is 1518. Yep, okay. Pay voucher days forward. Okay, Allie. I know this has something to do with Allie's. It smells like Allie. So let's go. Let's see, where was it?
Guilty.
Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. Employee Resource Center, setup, pay vouchers, right? So what we were dealing with, and this is an interesting parameter that was just added, and we've kind of changed the name of this one. This was called pay voucher days. We now have changed it pay voucher days behind and pay voucher days forward. And what we mean by that is simply this. I don't want them to see pay vouchers that are 270 days or older. So it's only showing them the last 270 days worth of pay vouchers. That's what the first parameter means. The next parameter is really about, I've posted my checks on Wednesday, and I want them on Wednesday to see the checks that are dated Friday. And we normally programmed it in so that until Friday showed up, they don't see those checks. They don't see those vouchers, if you will. And Rowan has had for years a self-service system, and those employees, it's all about conditioning. It's that the human condition, right? They've been conditioned to be able to see their checks on their self-service system on Wednesday, not Friday. Of course, they still need to see it on Friday. So we could just put a parameter of 2 in there, and the system will allow the filter to go out 2 extra days. So instead of, when they open it up on Wednesday, instead of using Wednesday as that date, it could use 2 days hence. So in this case, it would pick up the Friday check. So you could put a 2 or a 3 in there, which I'm assuming you did, and that solved that issue. Is that right?
Correct. And it makes payday a whole lot quieter for them.
I guess so. Go ahead. Somebody's going to ask a question.
I was just gonna say, remember though that the payroll phase has to be posted in the ledger for that.
Yes, you have to at least have done phase 1 of your posting.
Yeah.
If it's still in your journal, you can make this whatever you want and turn blue in your face. You ain't gonna get nowhere, because it has to read from the posted paycheck ledger, which isn't there until phase 1 is run on your posting. Right. Thank you.
Now, will this information then default into the transmitted piece during the payroll processing? So if we put 2 days, okay.
No, that picks up that picks up your check date. The effective date that appears in your in the actual ACH file, if you will, is always connected to your check date. So if you want it to be Wednesday, be my guest. Just override your pay date and make it Wednesday, and then they'll get the money in their checking account on Wednesday.
Just another advantage for them to go direct deposit, or to go so that they can see this ahead of time.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. I feel like somebody has requested at one time the ability to have the effective date of the ACH be 2 days before the computer check dates. Because that's like this incentive to make sure people comply and go on direct deposit. It's like a Benny basically. And in theory, Dan, I think that would be easy to sort of do in a way, because when you're doing your remittance advice only check run, you could override, I would think, with the Wednesday date, and then when you cut your computer checks, you just override again with the Friday date. And I think that all would work, but I have never tested any of that, but that may work.
Okay, so to be clear, this is ERC purposes only, and if you set this 2 days ahead and your pay date is Friday, as long as phase one.
No.
Why no?
It doesn't change the pay date. It only changes the time in which they can see the voucher.
I'm sorry if I said something incorrectly. That's my apologies. You have a pay date of Friday.
Right.
Your phase one is posted. This ERC setup will allow them to see that pay stub dated Friday's date 2 days earlier, right?
Correct. So exactly. So on Wednesday, if I have a 2 in there, and I close this, then if I'm physically on Wednesday, the computer date is Wednesday, and the check date is Friday, I will now see it. Exactly.
Right. Thank you for that clarity. Okay.
Yeah. So that was a little bit of a tweak. Thank you, Allie, for that. And
thanks, Allie, because we have districts that will very much appreciate that.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
so,
they love it.
Yeah, I think they will too. We always kind of had the stance, and it's sort of an opposite stance, which is that if I tell somebody they got paid, right, and even though it comes up with the check date of Friday, they're going to think that money's in their checking account because they're not going to go to their bank software. They're going to start spending money and bouncing checks and come yelling at us. So that was my philosophy, I guess, early on, is to be careful what you present to them because some people just aren't that great with their money. You know how it is. So, but I think, at a certain point, it's just a courtesy, right? Because again, they use it for planning, I guess, and so forth. So
we actually have a couple districts in Ohio that their union agreements state that they get those pay stubs a certain time in advance of their actual pay. So for that purpose, this is great. So thank you very much.
Yes, exactly, and that's exactly where that typically comes in. Is it's an agreement made with the employees to Right, so that's good. So North Carolina 1519, North Carolina State Unique ID Workspace. I guess we're having something going on there, and that was taken care of. So that's that. The Unique ID Workspace. I didn't know we had a separate workspace for Unique ID for North Carolina. Again, Allie, maybe no.
It's not separate. It's not a separate workspace, but it works depending on what state you're in. It works differently.
Okay, so where do I actually see some of that? State and province reporting, or no? Where do I see the unique stuff? Is it federal reporting?
Oh goodness.
No. All right, well let's just. I give up. I'll just do that. All right, so it's periodic activities. Okay, so it's periodic activities related to
it's
tasks.
Payroll. Well, it's payroll state.
Was it payroll?
Or is it payroll task? Maybe it's payroll task.
Wasn't it right here? Isn't this the whole thing here? New hire, or this is unique.
Up a little bit, right under periodic activities.
Right here, state unique.
Oh, right there, right.
There it is. Okie doke.
Yeah, and I haven't used this that much. Do we have a unique ID system? We'll see. I can see it's not defined, so I'm no good in Pennsylvania. But is that something that we do in Ohio? Unique ID reporting at this point?
I don't think Ohio has it. Maryland has it, and North Carolina has it. I think those might be the only two right now.
Yeah, I don't know of any circumstance we would.
Yeah, I think it's something that you'll see. I think every state ultimately will be on this system, so I think your day will come. But it's not there now, so we won't get too heavily into it. But when you do, you let us know because we'll maybe have to do something. Because every state has implemented it, if I remember correctly, slightly differently. There's just slight differences with each implementation. And again, the next work order, same thing. Vendor card, correct the pay to vendor field caption. So I think that was really just the field was actually right. Whoops, wrong button. Sorry. But again, well, it wasn't the field was right. It was just a caption issue. Somebody had at one point.
It was a caption because we were. I think this actually came out of Hampton City in looking at pay to vendors and things like that, and it was like, well, the pay to vendor's not there. I think actually NAV or somebody changed it to vendor number in 2013 from pay to vendor.
Yeah, I think that was just like, NAV or Microsoft or Serenic. It wasn't us. It was just because when we looked at it, we could tell they had done it. I don't know what's going on. I pressed the button and it's not coming up. I've been having this all day today. I'm just getting these weird delays. I don't know what's going on in our system.
So it was
it's coming up now. So you're talking about, I think, on the invoicing side. No, maybe not.
It's payments, maybe.
Payment side.
Where is it?
Let me see. Is it show more fields? Yeah, there it is.
Pay to vendor.
Pay to vendor. So it just said vendor number, and so people were probably putting maybe the same number in or whatever. They didn't know what it was, and so we just noticed that it just wasn't faithful to the real field name, and we really wanted to make it faithful so that people knew. And really, this functionality would be: I've got these 10 vendors that I really want to process purchase orders to, but when I actually cut the check, I really want the history and everything really ultimately to go to this other vendor. So that's completely different than a remit to issue, and it's completely different than an order address issue. So really, we have almost 3 different sort of things going on simultaneously, and they're theoretically all appropriate in different circumstances, depending on where you are. I've seen it a lot with in the supply chain world. I'm delivering product to 7-Elevens, and I've got 25 7-Elevens, but all of them are going to pay to this one vendor. It's really one vendor. It's just easier to have 7-Eleven store 7312 kind of as vendors, and but analytically you can get analytics both from the buy from and the pay to vendor. So that's why people like to do that. I want to see transactionally kind of where we are from an individual store perspective as well as collectively against the whole relationship. My dog is barking. They're putting new asphalt on our front road right now. So, okay, 1523. Add columns to selected pages. Add column totals to selected pages. This was a big one. I thought this one was probably one of the more important ones, and it came from a conversation that we got from, I think it was from Bladen's, one of our North Carolina districts. And they were doing this often. They were coming in to the account strings. Let me just close this door. See if it's, I did close it. She's just barking through it. Okay, let me just try to put a couple of filters in here. GL account number 1100. Alrighty, so when we go into, I don't know, just pick anything. This guy right here, when we drill this $12,163.47 balance, we get to a screen, and you know what the screen typically is. It's a GL ledger. I don't know why the system is running so slow today. Do you guys know what's going on?
I don't know. It's been slow for me the last couple of days.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So what we did, and it was really simple, is we just stuck this guy here. Okay. And what's nice about that is that if I further come in here and do a sub filter, and let's say I want to just right mouse click and say, give me all the entries that were posted by Muhammad. I guess I can't. Why am I not getting filtered to value? Anyway, I'm not sure why, but let me just pick something different here. Well, I'll just do this guy here. Filter, there we go, filter this value. So as I do this, watch that number to the bottom left. Boom, it changes. That's probably appropriate because I probably had a positive or a negative in there somewhere. Let me just see. Yeah, I'm assuming I do. There must have been a negative I just took out. Yeah, that's why. Okay, that makes sense. Make sure I can right mouse click this guy. And there you go. So that's just one of the places we put it in. And so what was frustrating to me is that they were doing this screen, they may be sub-filtering while they're in here, and then they're clicking and sending it to Excel just to simply hover over and get the total of what the amount was. And so they were spending a lot of time just going to Excel, getting totals. And that's what I think frustrated us quite a bit. So we went ahead and added it in several places. And one of the other places we did, I'm just going to kind of go through the list. GL ledger entries I just did. Let's go to vendor ledger entries. I'm sorry. And we'll go to Smitty, my favorite dude, and we'll go to navigate, and we'll go to ledger entries. Now notice it's in it is faithful to the sign, and the signs are negatives in vendors, so that's total. If I right mouse click and say invoices, I now see all the invoices, and I can see that's $128,000, and it is negative because these are negative, so we're not flipping signs here. And the total remaining amount is just this, so we are working on 2 totals simultaneously. If you said go ahead and give me, I don't know, I guess if I said how to filter and say on hold or open. Where's open? Is open here? I was going to say remaining amount is Oh, so that opens a hidden column, so I can actually do it here this way. Open is just true. So if I say open is true, yes, then that is going to be the exact same number. If I say the opposite and say no, then that'll be 0, because by definition, these are all a bunch of zeros. So, but again, it's just nice to be able to get totals on screen. So we did it in the vendor ledger entry screen. We did it in the payroll ledger entry screen, so this one probably is even more powerful. So let's go to payroll and bring up Melissa Clark. I'm not sure if Melissa's on this call. I always mess with Melissa. All right, navigate, ledger entries.
Hey, Andrew, while you're doing that, is there a reason we don't have a way to directly go to the payroll ledger entries?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, in other words, instead of having to go to an employee, click on ledger entries, just have a place where I can just go open ledger entries.
Yeah,
and it just
we could
opens
do that.
it up.
Yeah, we
and
could
then it just, I mean, I know in a lot of cases it's going to be huge.
Huge.
And so that may be the reason. That was the only thing I could think of was that.
No, we don't typically do that anywhere. We don't do that with vendor ledger entries, GL entries,
right.
Any of the entries. So that's why. Check ledger entries we don't do because which bank and da 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 da. So I mean, because anybody can just click this once and then just achieve the same result. Just delete that and you're basically in all the records. So I think that's the reason. Yeah.
Okay.
We use the heck out of ledger entries. Even if it could be, I know this is probably an enhancement, but even if this could be moved up to the home ribbon as a default on there, we are constantly going to that. We have districts that are constantly going to that.
Yeah.
I know they can customize it. I know they can customize it and move it up, but
let's do
we use it a lot.
But I agree. Let's do that. Let's move the ledger entries up. Can we get a work order on that? I do agree with you. And mainly you're talking the payroll employee list and employee
I think we've actually moved it on the vendor card.
Yeah, I think you're right. But one thing I would ask a question is, and again, I would just put this out there is, and maybe Bill, if you can sort of help me here, the ledger entries has always been in the upper left of this screen right here, and ACA was just dropped in an area under payroll, which is completely inappropriate. So this is not where ACA would ever go, because these are all payroll-related functions, and ACA is really an HR function, which would belong over here. So this is not put in the right spot. So we need to kind of deal with that and get it located correctly based on the design of the system. And furthermore, entries would then come up here. But then I guess the question is, you just want ledger entries. You don't need these guys as much, or do you want ledger entries and GL distributions on the home?
I want it all.
So do you want just this exact drop down then?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're asking, yes, that's the answer I'm going to give you.
So
yes.
you want the entire drop down of entries moved to the home page on both the card and the list, and ACA you don't want, but I want it put in the right spot. I don't know what it is,
so I don't care where you put it.
ACA is, ACA is it's set up for producing the data for the 1095s.
Yeah.
Then I do care about that. Sorry, I didn't know what that was.
You care about that, but we consider that to be an HR piece of code. That's HR.
I'm cool with that. That's good. So you're going to put it on the home tab for HR then, right?
We could. I don't know if they're going to really want it that prominent, because it's not something they're doing. They're doing once a year and kissing it goodbye. You know what I mean? It's not exactly going to be every day, but they do want it on the employee. This employee area is really HR, if you will. That's where benefits is. You want to have it near benefits, obviously, because it kind of mainly is connected to benefits. So that's where it should be, and it shouldn't be here at all. It's definitely not in the payroll area, and certainly we want to make that prominent in the upper left, and then we want to put that on the home page. We want it on the card. Well, let's actually go to the card and just kind of see what we have on the card. So yeah, you're right. We can move it there on the navigate. ACA again is in the consistently wrong place. So that needs to be corrected before. This is part of the new release anyway, so you'll never see it in the live version. But did you get that information, Bill?
Yeah, but I'll go back and re-listen to it. So.
Okay, no problem.
Skip my ACA comment.
No problem. So we did it in the payroll. Oh, I didn't go to work. I didn't go to the delivery of what I was trying to get to. So let's go to that. So there was the total right there, and we also did taxable amount. Notice taxable amount. So again, no matter how you filter this, let's say you say I want to filter real quick. Let me just kind of go to the bottom for her. And,
a lot of times you're filtering on a specific pay control.
Right. Well, let's say TSA 20. Yeah, filter TSA 20. and voila, there's the total. And again, it's negative because it's stored in the negative. There's the taxable amount, which of course I don't know why it's $10 million, but we've done a lot of weird transactions for this person. But then I can put a date filter, whatever, and voila, you got that quick total, right? Quick total. So that I think is going to be a huge winner when people understand what we're doing there. So I think we like that. I like that at least. If you guys don't, then tough. No, I'm just kidding.
I like that a lot because most sincerely, that's what our districts are doing. They're going back and either doing by pay control code or the type. And so that's great.
Yep, I agree. And then again, same thing here. So you can go ahead and say, let me just kind of do something typical. I might go, okay, add a entry type of allocation, which is all my debits. Allocation, boom. Whoops, I'm clicking it. Hello. All right, allocation, and maybe I'm, let me see, just doing a date range. Maybe I'm saying give me, everything from, 0101 ... Whoops, 2 dots, not 3 dots. And there you go, 171. So that's all my cost of both gross salary and expenses for this employee since January 15th. Boom, right there. I'm just making up something, but whatever. So again, GL distributions, same thing. We did it there. So payroll ledger entries. We did it in employee. We did it in. There's 2 pages, by the way, just so you guys know. There's the ledger detail you get to off of a payroll control card. So if I go on to, let's say, some kind of TSA deduction or FIT or whatever, I can ask for the ledger there. That brings up a page called payroll ledger entries. And it's a little bit different because it's designed to have the employees' names always visible because you're coming from a control perspective. When we come from the employee ledger, which is from the employee card, and as Dan, this is sort of part of the issue, we default out the name because you're on that person. Of course, you could show that column, of course, right? So anyway, so there are 2 pages. It was done on both pages. We did it on the payroll GL distributions. And I say... okay. So in the GL validate, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, it's Allie. I was just
Allie.
saying,
I'm sorry.
we've also got the allocation view and we've got 2 other places where you added it.
I'm heading there.
Sorry.
I'm reading my own notes. Yeah, this is an interesting one too. Now this one is different. So here, okay, I'm going and I'm filtering, right? I'm doing whatever. I'm doing GL account 1100, and I'm going ahead and doing a object code of 610, and maybe I'm doing whatever I'm doing. Well, we wanted to give you totals on this screen. Well, there was 2 problems. One is I've got a lot of columns, and how do I show it down in the footer? It kind of doesn't work. I can't really, I tried it, but it just kind of like it just stops displaying information after a certain amount, so I just couldn't do it. So then the further issue is it's what's called a list page. It's showing up in the white, it doesn't pop open. It actually is it's like off the main menu. It's like what I call a list page, which is in the white space. And so that's another reason why you really can't deal with footer data on a list page anyway. So it was for 2 reasons. I just couldn't do it there. So we decided, but it was so important to do. Allie said we got to do it. And so we went in there and we clicked this button now. We got a new button there called View Totals. And voila, it opens up for them. And so we can give them totals across all of the columns very easily shown at that point. So that's how we did it in places where we just really can't do it otherwise because they're what I call list pages and we have a lot of totals. So anyway, anywhere they can keep filtering, boom, total, boom, total. Is there a hotkey? I don't think I put a hotkey there. I could put a hotkey. I didn't know what hotkey to use. I just didn't do that, but I could. So anyway, GL account validator, GL account string totals. What was I doing there? What is GL account string? Oh, that's the new page. Yeah, that's the page I created. I was going to say, what is that? That's this page here. All right, so I created a new page. So did that. And job allocation totals. An employee job view. Oh, okay. Yes. Thank you, Allie. I know where we're at now. So now, furthermore, in departments, in let's say employees, etc., we have this thing called job allocations, and you can set filters and do all kinds of stuff. This table's becoming more and more popular. We just got a new work order to add some more columns to it, ASN and some other columns. We're going to do that. This table is an optional table you need to turn on, I think, in HR setup, and during the time the system automatically updates your employee views, it updates this table. This table is a combination of data from the employee master record, the employee job record and the allocation. So if I have an employee with 3 jobs and each job has 3 lines on their allocation, you'll get 9 records. And it's a really important table because you get all the way down to the account string, and then it starts taking the paid amount and divvying it up across those account strings. And there's actually going to be we're working on a project right now to try to work with Jet Reports to see if we can come up with a 5-year forecasting tool, and it will source it from this data. This is the starting point, if you will, for then building in all the models to be able to do a 5-year forecast. Let's say I increase it, we go up 1 step next year. Next year we just increase the grid by 2%, but we don't go up a step. And then maybe half a year we do this, and then we do that. Da da da. This is what I think is going to happen with the benefits. Da da da. What's the effects going to be? Across all my different account strings and so forth. Pretty cool stuff. So while we're on this screen, we added a view totals. There you go. So we're taking ones that make sense. We're not. Some of them are fields that are kind of it would make no sense to add them together because they're not, if you will, parsed down to the allocation percent. They're more just display. So those don't make sense because you're adding apples and you're getting, I don't know what you're getting. So you can't do that in that case where you're not slicing it down by the percent. If this allocation split 60-40, you got to make sure that it's being split. But we are with these fields. All these fields you see here, we are doing that. And so in that case, we did a total. I don't know if you had a chance, Allie, to take a look at that. Have you had a chance to focus and see how that works?
Yeah, I'm real tickled with it. I like it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that'll be a big winner too. I think this whole work order, this 1523, was a big watershed work order for us.
It's huge.
And it wasn't that much work. That was the cool part about it. The best work order is where you get the value with not that much work. That's what I love. Okay, so I'm leaving that work order unless there's any questions. A real important one to explain that to use. I mean, if we don't show that to our customers, we are not doing our job. We got to show them this capability. I think they'll see it, but you kind of want to point it out, I would think. Okay. 1527, HP check, enhanced layout, increase the width of the check amount control, set vertical alignment, bottom for check number caption. I'm not even sure what's going on, but we must have been having some technical problem there, and Mohammed was taking care of it. Is there anything that anybody wants to report on that one?
I think it was actually due to the Canadian dollar layout.
Right. Oh, okay.
Or something that was causing that issue, but
okay.
Anyway.
Okay. I do know that we've added a setup now to move the microline left and right. So I think it was in this release, or is it in the 15th release? I'm not sure. I think
it's in this release.
I think it's in this release too. So in cache management, and again, I'm not sure if I'm going to come to it or it was already buried in some of these, but in the check format, which has gotten awfully big, we got this thing called space before micro. And so if you're tending to think that the micro needs to be pushed to the right a little bit, put a 5 in there and it'll move it 5 spaces to the right. So anyway, so that's something that we're also helping on. Import K12E. Okay, I'm actually looking at the wrong thing. Okay, this is making more sense. Okay. Yep, okay. No wonder. This makes more sense. All right, 1530, time journal. Failing on import leave and not specifying job. When importing a leave entry for an employee whose primary job is salaried enhancement. I'm not sure. 1530 was being done by Kevin. Fixed bug that caused an error when no job was specified for a leave entry and the employee's default job was salaried. Okay, so that's
working now.
Good. Thank you, Chris. That's good to know. Good. 1531, correct caption on payroll test report. Correct the pay cycle days caption on the payroll test report. I don't know. That must have been just a minor little caption error that we then fixed, and I'm sure Mohammed did that, which he did. Hopefully that's working. 1544 PIMS. We're doing more work in PIMS. This is, again, Pennsylvania's staff reporting system, so I'm not going to get heavily into that. I'm not sure what was going on there, but I'm sure that's been tested, I'm hoping. I'm not sure who reported that, but I do know that the work was done by Mohammed. 1545, URES installment indicator error. That's again in the reporting back to North Carolina, so I'm not going to go heavily into that unless, Allie, you can think of something that applies to the whole base, but I think it's probably pretty specific. 1547, preview check AP not showing the remit to address. I never knew anybody who was actually running that. I thought we removed that years ago, but obviously we have not. And so that is in the cache management side, right? And payment journal. Let me see if I have any invoices. Yeah, so I have a preview functionality. I just don't know. It's not here. It's probably on the action side. Preview check. Yeah. So I guess that address was not the remit to address, because I know it probably wasn't, because it's probably in here that we're really talking about, I suspect. Yes, this address was not reflecting the remit to address, and that was fixed. I'm not sure why anybody runs this. Okay, go ahead.
Well, some of our schools were using it because with the extra address that your new address feature where you can have multiple addresses, they were using this to make sure they got the right address before they printed checks.
I gotcha.
But with this one, can you see where it says city, state, and zip, and it still shows a address? I think we need to add a fourth line in there for a second address line.
I would concur. I would say that doesn't look right, does it? It's like that doesn't even make any sense.
Print right.
It prints correctly.
It prints correctly, but from an AP aspect.
Okay. I guess, Roxanne, since you're on the phone, can you write that up for us? Is that Roxanne's voice? No, it wasn't Roxanne's voice. Whose voice was that?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Can you write that work? Can you write the work order up for us?
What was the work order? I apologize. I was on something else.
No, it's not a work order. It's a new work order you're going to help write us up for. We need to fix this page 404, check preview 404.
Okay.
To correct. We got the right remit to address, but the city, state, and zip, you see what it's doing? It's showing you the address, and it's not showing you the city, state, and zip. Right? I mean, let's just go to another one and go down to here. I'm going, I don't think, well, see, that one's right.
Well, some of them are correct, but if they have two address lines, then it doesn't show up correctly on the preview.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, that's something that's easily fixable. I can understand why. Okay, that's cool. Okay, yeah, we definitely can fix that. We have not played with this very much, but again, whoever played with it, which is in this case Mohammed, didn't pick that up. I guess in his test he didn't see that, so he would have fixed it anyway. But unfortunately, okay, so we'll get that taken care of. Sorry about that. 1550, more NC orbit retirement reporting. So to be consistent, we'll skip that. We'll skip the next one. Actually, this next one is still being worked on. I think we just finally, Dan, got that intercompany posting menu updated. We didn't even get it updated correctly in this work order. We had to come back to us.
Well, we had one, and then as we started to work through it, there was some more that didn't realize there were. So now we've added some more.
Yeah, it's all in this area here. It's all this business of transferring cost in part or full from company A to company B, and these were areas. So you had the setup areas you told us to put on the menu, but not realizing the transactional side was missing as well.
Right.
Yeah. Well, see, we were consistent. We removed it consistently, and just didn't put it back consistently.
Yeah. So
anyway, so that's been done. And I think they advanced that, didn't they?
Yeah, we did that yesterday.
Yeah, it's been advanced out to test. So we're working with it. So looking at it again, working through the transactions now to see how they're going to flow.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
We also had a couple of things from North Carolina that were added in on that as well. So, Allie, all that stuff that you were waiting on should be in there.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Bill.
Okay. Yeah, we had a problem with 34. I can't remember what 34, the message 34 on. So basically on 1556, we had a problem with the error message that was showing up when a certain thing was not right. And so we actually went in there and did, I think, quite a bit of sort of reshuffling of those error messages to make them cleaner and more precise. So there's a lot of work done in that area. So I think you'll find that if we do have a problem, the error messages have gotten cleaner and better and that's what was done. So I did quite a few of them in 1556. So again, we're always trying to find out that our error messages are either wrong or they're just not clear enough. They don't have enough information for people to really hone in on what the problem really is. And so we really want to make sure that that's not the case. And so that's what we're doing a little bit in 1556.
Andrew,
yes,
on
ma'am.
that topic, and maybe you guys have already covered it, and so my apologies if so, one of those other error messages that are popping up on the error check online just says dimensions like 0000 are invalid or not there, but it doesn't tell us in relationship, is it relationship back to a specific posting group? It just says dimension 0000 is not valid.
Right.
So of all of our journal entry lines, we have no idea where to go. So again, I don't know if you've already dealt with that, and if you have, my apologies for bringing it back up.
No, I'm glad you did. No, I think we might need another work order, Bill, on this. Well, again, there's something new in 15, so let's see what's new. Yeah, we did a lot of work on pay cycles, but you're talking about an error message that says, it's hard to say because these are all kind of written in little, da-da-da. It's like, let me see if I can figure it out. So you're saying we got a bad...
Yeah, the error message will actually say dimension 0000 is invalid, but it doesn't relate back to where that dimension is coming from. Is it because it's like somebody set up an improper posting group on somebody, say they created a new pay control, there's a new posting group out there, they created the posting group but didn't, for whatever reason, or it got missed, go up to dimensions on that navigate tab and enter them there. It doesn't tell us like where to go and look at, or is the dimension actually missing on the allocation string? So sometimes we're just not sure where to go look for that at.
Because if the in the payroll, according to this, I'm just kind of trying to read. No, that's if it's blank. If it's always, because I know we have messages that say something like global dimension 6. So I guess object. I'm trying to read this. Payroll posting group. Object for payroll posting group, blah blah, is missing at line da da da. So that's, I guess. So again, if it's blank in the payroll posting group, that message should be clear. You know what I mean? I'm just surprised that one is not clear to you.
It's not even giving a line number. Even if it gave a line number, then we could go check those items on that line. But it's just simply saying dimension is invalid, and it gives the whatever part of that dimension is incorrect.
Yeah, it must be down here, I think. Validate one dimension line. Validate one dimension line. Let me see if I can. Yeah, I need to know more about that. I guess what I need to do is, if you could sort of, what would help is to sort of set it up on purpose.
Yes, sir. You can do that. Absolutely.
In your test environment, and then maybe switch over to sort of. I guess because to me, Roxanne or somebody in support, what I would like is to have it set up that way in our dev environment, right? And then the work order written, and then just say, hey, just go there, you'll see this, and then, because we need to be a little bit more exactly what the right conditions are, because there are so many different conditions here. It's kind of like a needle in a haystack. So I just need you to be kind of, and you can just send it, if you just set it up in your test system and just send us a nice email with print screens, I think we'll be able to figure it out. Okay. And then just show us the error message. And sometimes we found that the error messages it's kind of complicated, because the error messages are a bunch of these text constants that have, you see where it says %1, %2, %3, and so like if you can get it wrong. In other words, you can just make a mistake and have just the wrong field replacing the wrong %, or you might not specify enough of them. It doesn't give you an error. It just it just doesn't work. It just makes no sense. So we just accidentally, we had good intentions, but when we wrote it, we just kind of didn't express it technically correct, and so therefore the message just doesn't make any sense to you. So we found a few of those, but again, we're happy to fix any of them. But I don't think what you're talking about was fixed in this last pass in this release 14. So I do believe definitely 14 is in your system now, so obviously you'll tell us, but if it's still messed up, obviously we want to know.
Okay,
So,
no worries. We'll
yeah.
make sure to get that around for you then. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we will fix it immediately, and we could even advance it, I believe, possibly, because this one is advanceable right now. All we did in this 15th release so far is somebody wanted some additional checking on pay cycle. So, like, let's say for whatever reason, the earn pay cycle or the pay cycle fields, there's 6 fields in general. Are they anything missing in those 6 fields, or does something maybe not resolve to a related record correctly, or does something not smell right? We report that now. And again, I'm not sure how we ever got into that situation, but evidently we did in some situations. So we test for that now. So anyway, 1558 add reporting authority code to page 3703, 2301, employee ledger entries. And yeah, so the employee ledger entries and payroll ledger entries, both those pages I was talking about earlier, we went ahead and added the payroll authority code. I'm surprised it wasn't there. The second page is okay. We're just explaining where it's access to. But anyway, so that's what we did there. I'm not sure why it wasn't there already. New method steps. Well, there goes Linda again. We'll just ignore her. And the last but not least one that I am showing is 1577 PO header information being blanked out when receipt submitted by a limited user bug fix. So anybody on this call have any update for me on Fairview, which is in our cloud, that was having this problem? Does anybody?
I think they still had it. I think it still occurred. But James is the one that would know that, and he's not on the call. But
No,
anybody that notices this problem, we need to know about it, because
right,
Fairview's having it pretty consistently.
Roanne ran into it
one time, right?
Yes, but it was prior to the fix. I haven't heard that they've run into it again, but I'll keep you posted.
I think we actually had that. It happened in is it Knox CCC?
I think so too. Yep.
And we ran into it, but hadn't seen it again or hadn't heard about it. So.
Well, we've done a bunch of things because we saw some code that was a little suspect. We addressed the code, and we never were able to ever replicate on our own, and we've tried a million times. But we did do a bunch of stuff to try to fix it, and it wasn't always clear to me whether the place where it actually reoccurred really had the code, the bug fix in it, when it happened. So, I'm not 100% convinced that we haven't actually solved it, but as you say, Linda, you think Fairview is still reporting it. But what the symptom is, just so you know, is that the limited user goes in on a purchase receipt on the ERC, and they fill in their quantities, receive, whatever, and they hit submit. I think just immediately at that point, what's happened is that the header still has the document number in there, but every other field has been basically nulled out. They're all blank. And so, of course, at that point, it's kind of become a corrupted PO, because you have lines that are kind of, in a true state. They're kind of normalized state, but the header is just all effed up, basically. And it really is kind of like, in theory, would never even be able to happen. And but yet it is happening according to them. We've never been, every time we've been on like calls with them where we actually ask the people to do it right in front of us, I haven't ever seen it happen. I think Melissa might have once, but or James, but
I think James has.
But that was before we made a bunch of changes. And so I just want to alert you guys that if you do see like all of a sudden a real PO that has been received by a limited user in which the header data has now been blanked out, call us on the hotline, call us immediately, send emails out, boom, 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 and we need to know. Now, just to remind me, is 14 in production in Ohio?
No.
Okay.
No.
It's in test.
Yeah, it's in test.
We kind of wanted to wait until we got through this discussion before we did that, so much appreciative.
Okay, good. And how about in the cloud? Is it in the cloud?
It's in production in the cloud, yes.
Okay, and that's where Fairview is, by the way, guys. So, okay, that's fine. Well, let's just keep monitoring it. And Yeah, I mean, we look at the code, and I stare at the code. It's like such simple code. I'm going, this is impossible. How could this even possibly do what's happening? And so we're still kind of like scratching our heads a little bit. Even in the earlier part of this, when I looked at the code, I still couldn't understand what was going on. And we've run a lot of debugs and a lot of SQL scripting, and Ben's looked at it, I've looked at it. It's been a lot of effort, and we just can't quite figure out what's going on. But we did do some things, and so we'll just keep everybody posted. So that's the conclusion of session 2 of 3.01.14. Obviously, we're working on 15 now, and I'm not sure the scheduled release date of that. I suspect it's weeks away. Bill, do you have any sense of timing on 15?
Nope.
Okay, so we're at this point. If he doesn't know anything, that means it's definitely a decent amount out. And I know I've got plenty of work I'm working on related to it. Some of the things I can kind of go ahead.
Andrew, can you real quick? I know, and I was looking to see, and don't see Melissa on the call,
No.
but can you kind of address the ACA reporting? I think that's becoming a hot issue because it is coming, and there's
Dan, I'm going to cut you off because something should be coming out from Debbie this week or next. We've gotten the objects from Serenic, and they've been working on it, and we should have a document from her this week or next with kind of where we are and what needs to be done, and
right. But I especially just wanted the meta staff to know that it is on the near horizon. And we are looking at, I think some of these districts are getting pressure from third-party vendors to do things, and they don't need to be doing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Linda, I sure didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I just wanted to say we just got this stuff from Serenic last week, I think, and we've already imported it. We've started work on it, adding enhancements to what they've already done, and we should have some instructions. I mean, there's data that you're going to need that is probably not in K12 from the your medical vendors like. Dependents. Thank you. I couldn't come up with that word. Dependents, and their social security numbers and some information like that, which we are hoping to be able to provide an import for. But you will have to get that information. But anyway, all that should be coming out in the next week, or within the next week, from Debbie with kind of where we are and what needs to be done. So I know you're getting a lot, everyone's getting lots of questions about it.
Yeah, please know we're super appreciative of all that you guys are doing, but yeah, here's what's happening. You guys hit it on the head. We have third-party vendors that are coming into these treasures, offering the goods to them, and then giving them deadlines, and they're not believing anything but what these guys are saying. Therefore, we're getting pushback here, and to be very honest, Rachel has spent probably a week trying to create one report for one district and exhausting, just trying to pull things out of K12 to get that to them, and really muddling through. So we really do appreciate anything you guys can do going forward. So.
And that's what upsets me, is because that day that information is not even due yet. I mean, they're pushing for things that aren't even. They're just pushing for data, and they're giving these treasures, they're just
scared.
using scare tactics on them.
That's exactly right.
It really ticks me off.
Yeah. So we're dealing with scared treasures, and you guys have all dealt with that before, so you know it's not a fun place to be. So.
Yep. So. All right. Well, any other questions and comments from anybody on this call before we complete the call?
Hey, Andrew.
Yes.
Back to the requisition. I know that they're having issues there with several of the districts at Meta on where it's not where the whole header blanked out. It's where now the PO that's referenced does not show in the requisition lines on the list, but it's if you open the P or the which PO is if a PO has been issued, it doesn't show it on the list, but if you open up the requisition and go to the lines, it references that document number on the lines, the PO, but for some reason it's not showing on the lines. I don't know if it has anything to do with or any relation to do with some of the
No,
headers
no,
blanking
no.
out totally.
No, that's generally by design. The way the product came out of the box, if you will, and we've haven't done a lot to sort of change that architecture. I think we will down the line. In theory, requisitions is demand, and you can have 4 or 5 people asking for somewhat the same thing going to be sourced from the same vendor. And so the system has the ability today, and still does, to create one PO, which is basically fulfilling 4 or 5 requisitions, if you will, because you're basically getting better pricing if you order it all at the same time. So because of that, architecturally, the system really understands the requisition number that fulfilled a requisition line, not a header, by concept and by design. So that's why you don't see it in the header. It doesn't make sense from an architectural perspective to show you in the header, because you could, for instance, it's possible really that you could have one line even on your requisition on order A and another requisition on order B. I mean, we can actually change the vendor, and so you can actually even source 2 different vendors for the 2 different lines. And so in theory, you could have 2 different POs for line A and line B on your requisition. So that's why, when you're on the requisition worksheet, you have the requisition in front of you, and yes, when we change the target to a different vendor, it switches all the other lines, but you can override that and put that 4th line to a different vendor, hit the button, and it will generate POs to 2 different vendors. I want to get this from vendor A and this from vendor B. So that's why architecturally what you're looking for doesn't fit with the architecture. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that field name was the fulfillment number.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So that's, because I know they keep, the districts keep, kind of pounding back at them on that,
right.
That's blank. This is blank. I don't know whether, when I go in my list, it doesn't say whether this is fulfilled or not, but yet there's, it's the numbers on other lines, and I couldn't.
Yeah. Well, we can probably do something there to make it a little bit cleaner. I'm not saying we can't do anything. I'm just saying that's just generally speaking why, but I think we probably could do that. What you're saying is I need easier, quicker visibility to which requisition number. And again, what we could possibly do is just write a little bit of code that drops in the value on that header list for what it sees, as long as it sees the same value in all the lines. And if it doesn't, it could just say the word multiple, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I think that's something that we could do, just as sort of a fake data, if you will, that would go out to the lines kind of as the list is being opened, that shows you the fulfillment document number, which, again, you can fulfill a requisition with a blanket purchase order. So again, to say purchase order, I mean, yes, but it doesn't always have to be. You could do it in you could create a blanket order for that requisition and then cut multiple orders from it, and keep tracking like a large quantity and just kind of keep, spinning out order after order after order, taking down that blanket order, if you will. So that's another reason why it uses the fulfillment document number instead of purchase order number, because it's not literally always that. It could be one, it could be something different. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Andrew,
All righty.
If we can schedule this release being pushed into production, like after end of work day tomorrow, that would give Rachel time to put a summary together for our districts and get it out to them before we actually release it on them.
Okay.
So if that's okay with everybody?
Yeah, just send Susan an email and tell her you want it pushed out, either tomorrow at 5 or after 5 or something like that.
Rachel, you catch that? Yeah. Okay, we got it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
Great,
just let Susan know when you want it pushed out.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
She's the pusher lady. We call her the pusher lady. And she's so not the pusher lady.
Yeah, really.
This is Angela. Roxanne, are you still on the call?
I am.
What about, is that going to be a hot fix with the reprint of check copies? The thing that we were on the phone with the other day?
Where we're addressing the address not showing up on the preview or the reprint?
No, we're talking about reprint when you go to cash management and you go to the bank and you do ledger entries and you pick your checks. And it right now they run by vendor number. So that doesn't sync with the checks that are printing in the payment journal at all.
Well, again, it's weird. So you're clicking reprint. That normally defaults to just one check. That's what it is.
No. You're printing your check copies.
They're doing the check copies for the whole batch.
Oh, but they're doing that
Yeah,
from the
what it's
register.
doing, it's not
They're
doing an
it.
order. So we have a work order that is placing them in different sort orders that they
But let
have
me get
requested.
that clear. To reprint a batch, you do that from the register. Is that correct?
Right.
Right.
I mean, we're not coming
That's the
here.
best
This is not
place
where
to
you
do it.
should be. You should be over here
That's where we are.
in your GL registers, and you should be in your payment journal, which I'm guessing is like this, and there the reprint check will appear, and it will automatically know which ones. And so what you're saying now, I think, could be a little complicated. I'm just trying to think it through.
Well, shouldn't it print in the order that it's in the register at this point?
Right now, okay, because the way I thought we were shown was to go to cash management, to your bank, and to ledger entries. And then if you hit reprint checks, and if I put a range in, and if I put check number 1 to check number 50, it prints, it doesn't print check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It prints by vendor number order. And and that is like,
yeah, here's what I suggest doing. That's not the procedure we didn't design for you to do it that way.
That's what I was shown.
So I'm not saying I'm not saying yes. I mean, again, what we really designed to do when we had the requirement of check reprint, we knew that people wanted to do an entire set of file copies, right, for a run. And that we wanted to do off of the GL registers because Dan just sort of said, hey, that one's kind of in the order it posted, which I believe is then sorted. I don't know, Dan, whether that's still going to be the answer. I don't know. So I'm still a little skeptical of my own answer here. But I do want you to try and then provide feedback to go back to the registers, find the journal, because the register is that posting of that payment journal, right? And so it's a little bit more precise because we don't want you doing like check dates and range of check numbers when you're trying to do an entire run. We really want you to do it from the register, which is by definition the run. And so that's why the check print is on the registers, and it only will work and only allow you to work to press that button when you're on a payment journal register. So if you try from there and it's still not sorting right, that's fine, but that's where we want to fix it. I just want to just say kind of to everybody universally on this call, we never really expected to know how to sort it per se one at a time from the check ledger. That wasn't really kind of the design. It's kind of harder to do it there because we don't even have, I think, the data that we need. I'm still not sure we even have the data we need, Dan, even in the register. We may have to add some data. I have a feeling we're going to have to add some data somewhere to be able to rebuild a key to do this. I'm just not positive. I'm not sure about that. And I might need to work on that, or Mohammed and I might need to collaborate on this one. But do try from the register and let us know what you find, either way, and then we'll go from there.
So I need to put some sort options in here.
Well,
the screen that you're on.
No, I don't think you need to. In other words, what I'm saying is that what I want you to do is let me just see if you can just run this. I've got to run. I'm kind of getting late for a meeting, but yeah. Again, I don't know. We have two checks here, so I have no data. My data sucks, so I have no way to really know until you do on one of your big runs what's going on here. What we're hoping is that it might just be in the order that you guys have chosen on that payable setup all automatically. You know what I'm saying? So if it's not, then that's what we need to know. But either way, I think you'll find it's a lot simpler to just come to the register and just press that button, and it will by definition just be the checks just for that posting. You won't have to set any ranges. It will know it automatically.
Okay, I'll try that.
Yeah, that'll help because you won't have to even think about that kind of stuff. What range should I pick and all that stuff. That was to help alleviate you having to worry about that. Any other questions, comments?
No, thanks for taking your time. We appreciate it.
No problem. We'll get that recording put over onto the K12 server, and then Bill will do his thing to get it up to you guys. So I will go ahead now and